I have created a school in Alaska, and today I'll be rebuilding them until they win 2 championships, but this is going to be one of the hardest challenges I've ever done because we're starting with 0 players on our roster, and the Alaska Nanooks are based out of Anchorage, Alaska, so due to their location, they can only recruit in Alaska, Washington, and Canada. I've also decided to make the challenges list for this video much more difficult, like winning 2 championships instead of 1, and all of those have to be completed in just 10 years, but if I fail even just one of those objectives, I have to give away a college jersey to a random commenter. We'll be in the Mountain West Conference for the first 8 years, but after that, the Nanooks will get thrown into the toughest one for the final 2 seasons, and you might be wondering what our mascot, a Nanook, is, so after trying to figure it out myself for the last 15 minutes, it turns out it's another name for polar bears, and after looking at our logo, that would make some sense. We have to start finding some talent for this team though, because like I said, we're starting with 0 players, and in the state of Alaska, it looks like there's 2 guys we can go after. There's a reason we can't only recruit in our home state, and Canada won't have much to offer either with only 4 prospects available, but there is a 5-star here, so that's important to point out. And I think a bulk majority of our recruiting is going to be done in Washington, where there's 37 different prospects to choose from. I have no idea how I'm going to win 2 championships in 10 seasons if I can only go after like 35 players, especially since we have 1 option at quarterback and it's a 63 overall, and that's where one of these 2 athletes could be our saving grace because both of them have pretty decent throwing stats, but they're highly ranked recruits, and as a new college, we're the worst team in the country, so I highly doubt we're going to land either of those guys, but I've put together our board and this is what the top players look like. It's not bad, but as I advance a week, you're going to see a lot of them fall off, and that's because we're just not able to put up as many points as some of these other schools, but we are going to stay in the battle for this athlete, Chris Lloyd. The only other school we're in competition with is Indiana, and with these stats, it would be amazing if we could get him, but if it doesn't work out, there's a lot of other options on our board now. As I scroll through them, you'll see that, and one of the stupidest things I've ever seen is we have a deal breaker on Travis Green for playing time. There's literally nobody on our roster next season, so that shouldn't even be possible, but we're going to advance a few weeks into the year, and it's becoming more and more apparent that we're not going to have a chance at these top 3 prospects. To make matters worse, our next visit week available isn't until week 11, so I've scheduled everybody for that, but we're just not going to get who we want, and we've officially lost our first big recruiting battle. Chris Lloyd has committed to Indiana, and then I wanted tight end Joel Justice, but Washington started pursuing him, so I'm starting to accept we're not going to get him either, but we got our first commit in center Ray Mays, and I have found another option at quarterback because nobody's going after Antonio Thornton. We just landed Chad Brown, but if this guy turns out to be any better, he could be our starter. He's a 68, and I also want to go after 2-star receiver Greg Sears because he was a +7. The first year's been rough because all the players on the current roster we're not going to have, and that's why I've only done recruiting because as you can see, they're all redshirt seniors. So next year, these prospects are all we're going to have, and it looks like we did lose out on Joe Justice, but between landing those 2 corners and this being our visit week, we should be fine, and it makes no sense, but we have a deal breaker on Greg Sears again for playing time even though we're going to have no receivers. I don't understand it, but at least we got a ton of different commits, and right now if I scroll through our board, you're going to see that we have 10 players on next season's roster, including this 69 overall halfback, which is our best one yet. From here on out, there's not much more to see on our recruiting board besides Greg Sears' deal breaker is gone and Antonio Thornton, so as season 1 comes to a close, it's nice to see more yellow names, and I still have no idea how we're going to complete all these objectives in 10 years, but Antonio Thornton would certainly be a big help, and Boston College stole our 1 linebacker. It also doesn't help that I'm going to get fired every year for a while, because every single time that happens, I'm going to be reset to a level 3, and we could desperately use any transfers here, but there are none. Our roster's only going to consist of the guys that we've brought in, and this is how I'm splitting up our offseason recruiting, where I must have done a pretty good job because we got all 5 of those guys, and our first recruiting class comes in ranked at 106, but I'm happy with how it turned out because I have one more big move to make in this offseason. That'll come after position changes, and we have found our first tight end, but aside from moving that fullback, I'm not going to make many other changes, and the game has filled our roster with 40 overall walk-ons, so we've gone from 19 players to 48. It is time for my big move though, and any player the game allows me to redshirt I'm going to do, because I can pretty much guarantee that we're going to go 0-12 in season number 2. So once again, it's going to be all about recruiting, and there are 2 players from Alaska. It's a shame that we can't use our home state to find most of our talent, and Canada's not much better with only these 4 prospects available, but Washington should always be our saving grace, and there's 29 people to choose from. These 35 prospects are literally the only ones that I can go after this year, and I was able to find some gyms, but landing them is going to be a whole different story because it'll be tough. Starting now, I can hop into 3 games a year, but we are not projected to be good, so with this 23 overall roster, I'm probably going to avoid doing that, and any player we don't have a chance at getting like Adam Bowen, I'm probably going to remove from our board, but these top 5 prospects, I am seeing us as the number 1 or number 2 option for all of them, and I think between these 3, we have an edge rusher, a 2-way player, player and then another two-way player that could play QB. This is the class that could change everything, and against North Dakota State, they beat us by 46. So our Season 2 focus has to stay on recruiting, and I'm glad I stayed on Adam Bowen because we're gaining points now. Now, obviously, this challenges list we're not going to touch for a while, but the one we'll always have an opportunity to complete is beating Washington, and they're the closest rivals I could come up with to Alaska, but of course, for now, it's going to be pretty rough. I can't be upset though because our recruiting class is set up to be way better than I thought it would, so I'm getting everybody on a visit as soon as possible, and it could be a while before we win our first game, but it's all good. We just got our first 2 commits of this class, and I might as well hop into this one. I know that we're not going to win since we're averaging 0.8 points per game, but I just wanted to see what our home jerseys and field look like, and I have to point out the first issue, which you're probably already noticing. We're playing in Alaska, and it is not snowing. It is clear as day, and that's because even though I looked at every possible setting on the back end of this game, there was no way to change the weather, but we are based in Alaska, so at the end of the year, I'm sure there will be plenty of matchups where the snow does eventually come, and that's a bad pass. Because of where it was put, we're not going to get the first, and even though we've stayed in this one longer than I thought we would, there's only so much I can do. I mean, almost every good player we recruited I redshirted, so losing is the outcome I would have predicted, but I'm hoping some of the visiting prospects are going to commit, and look at that, 4 of the top 5 guys on our board are now going to be Nanooks. Athlete Corey Malone is also very close to committing, so we can start to focus on some other guys. I gotta say, I feel like this is one of the hardest rebuilds I've done yet, but this does give me some hope. And our second big visit week of the year is going to be against Colorado State, but we all know that we're not going to get a win with just walk-ons on our team, so that result was expected, but Corey Malone has committed along with some other really good prospects. And another thing that's made this recruiting period so great is we've yet to lose a single battle, but I still think it's going to be a struggle to get this tight end. So as we finish out the year, I'm just hoping for the best. And even though we're starting to pick up some lower overall prospects, I have noticed that we didn't get Mark Mitchell, so we did lose a battle, and it's coming down to the wire for Adam Bowen and Joe Kent. These are all foundational pieces that are very important to land, but we're falling further behind, and Adam Bowen locked us out, so it's a miracle that we got a coach point at the perfect time, because with the locksmith upgrade, we can stay in this one for a little bit longer, and that is huge. I'm not even upset that eventually Joe Kent would choose Washington because we are going into the offseason in this one, and it's kind of impressive that we only scored 3 points all season. Every other team in our conference is going to be so much better than us for a while, and we're not supposed to get any better anytime soon, but by 2028, things could be looking up. I don't even want to touch on season stats because these are just all walk-ons that I'm going to cut, but I don't think I've ever seen a program that's averaged 0.2 points per game, and my coach tree's being reset for the second time. One thing that could really hurt us is if anybody is transferring out, but that wasn't the case, and it looks like we have one player that wants to come in, so I'm happy with that, and I'm going to put 7,000 points on Adam Bowen. After landing both of those prospects, I've noticed that we signed a top 60 class, and I'm very happy with how this one turned out, so let's get over to position changes and move some players around. It isn't pretty, but we've actually built an entire starting offensive line, and one thing I've really struggled to recruit is linebackers, so I have to move some safeties over there. It is nice to know that we're going to have both a kicker and a punter though, and it's time to deal with these athletes where the first one, Justin Neal, is going to play both halfback and corner for us. Then there's Michael Rhodes, who will probably start on both the offensive and defensive line, but the big one is Corey Malone, who could play quarterback, but I'm actually not going to put them there because I'm trusting Antonio Thornton to improve, and with that in mind, Corey's actually going to play at wide receiver. He'll also be on our defense, and look at that, Antonio Thornton's up to a 73. So with this freshman, we have our answer at QB, and with redshirting going into season 3, I have to be a little bit more careful. There's a lot of players that are going to get important minutes for us, and this is what our schedule looks like, but what I have to focus on is making sure we have a lot of two-way players out there, and that includes wide receiver Corey Malone, who's going to be starting at strong safety. For the first time in this rebuild, I'm not that stressed as I go to search for players, and Alaska has 7 for us this season, so that was a pleasant surprise, and Washington has another 35 that I'm going to look through very thoroughly. Like always, in this first week, I'm just going to put points on the best players and see which ones we have a chance on, and even though I'd love to get this 6'5 safety, there's already a deal breaker that's popping up, so that's probably not realistic, and we're supposed to be the worst team again. One of these days, we won't be projected to finish at the bottom of our conference, and that might not be too far out because we're up to a 63 overall, so that's a huge jump from a 23 overall last season, and against Washington, they beat us by 34. With that result, I can pretty much guarantee we're not completing any of these this season, and to make matters worse, Washington's beating us out for our top 3 prospects where we're going to have 0 chance at getting any of them. After a lot of revising to our board, this is what it's going to look like with a major focus on bringing in some more offensive linemen, and I know there's still a ton of games that we're probably not going to win, but next week we take on Eastern Washington, who's an FCS school, so I'm going to go ahead and schedule all these guys who are ready for a visit, and it would be so nice if we could just get the win. My main focus has to be rushing for over 100 yards, and it looks like it is raining in Alaska, but even though it's freezing cold, there's no snow yet because it's not the end of the season. But after doing a quick Google search, maybe it doesn't snow there as often as I thought it did, and I'm so excited to see how our two redshirt freshmen come out and perform. Thornton is the future of this program. We need him to be solid, and he is going to find Corey Malone, but he couldn't hold on to the football. And with a few minutes left in this first half, we have still scored 0 points as we don't get this 3rd and 22. One positive I can point out has been our defense, as it's been solid, but we give this up. And I have a feeling this drive is going to end with Eastern Washington scoring. Corey Malone misses the tackle, and they take it to the crib. As the game's gone on, I thought all hope was lost, but we have it within 6 with 5 minutes left. And they keep getting us to these 3rd downs where our tight end is going to come away with the football. Getting a win in this game would be huge for the program, and we take it to the 2. So now we should be able to just hand it off to get in. And with this extra point, we have a 1-point lead. Our fans seem to think we might get our first win now, but our defense has to step up on this 3rd and 4, and it looks like we've left somebody wide open. Eastern Washington would eventually get into field goal range too. So if they try to run out the rest of the clock, we could be in a bit of trouble, but I just realized we still have all 3 timeouts, and we can get this ball back no matter what as long as we just make the hit. They are settling for a field goal as they're chewing the clock on us, and we make the tackle. So the Nanooks have a real chance, and getting our first win would be such a big deal, but I have to make the smart read to get us down the field. With no timeouts, that probably was not it, and I am just waiting for something to get open, but it never did, and our tight end is what I'm going to take. He is so big, he trucks somebody, and I am so glad that we were able to get Adam Bowen. Now I'm about to take the sack with Thornton. He is going to avoid it though, and this is going to be close. With no timeouts left, the pressure is really on. I don't know what our kicker's field goal range is, but we're just going to have to hope that he can drill it from here, and that is in. Alaska has gotten their first win in program history, and it's all because of Antonio Thornton, who led that game-winning drive in front of the visiting recruits. Even though he only has 70 speed, he also rushed for quite a bit, and after putting in all that work, not a single player committed, but we did jump into the lead on our 2 most important prospects. I don't expect us to beat anybody else this season, though. We are going to lose to San Jose State, and that was a blowout, so hopefully this is better, but it wasn't. In that time span, we did pick up Dwayne Washington and Mark Norwood, though, who is going to make for a pretty good halfback in DB, and San Diego State's 1-5, so we could have a chance, but they beat us by 35. With a loss like that, I wouldn't have expected to pick up 3 more commits, but we did, and I'm going to schedule a visit week against Montana, because they are an FCS school, so we could beat them, and it would also probably save my job if we did, so I'm just going to hope for the best, and it looks like we are going to lose by 10. Now that I think about it, I should have just played it, but we'd still land players like Jesse Jackson, who I really wanted, and I have a feeling we're going to get everybody else on our board besides these top 3 players, which are all going to come down to the wire. Like I predicted, you're going to see players like wide receiver Lawrence Savoy chose Alaska, but it was only a matter of time before we got locked out in one of these battles, and I have to do something. I saved a coach point so I could put it into Locksmith, and that means we're still going to have a chance at landing tackle Fred Sullivan, which is big. To end the year, we actually beat UNLV, and I wasn't expecting that, but it means we didn't finish last in our division, and if we would have taken down Montana, I probably wouldn't get fired. We'll see what the athletic director decides at the end of the season, but that sim result blew my mind, and Trey Wiggins chose Washington State. That's a little disappointing, but we did land linebacker Kyle Jackson, and Antonio Thornton threw for 2 touchdowns during his freshman year. I don't know why he put up so many rushing yards since he's more of a pocket passer than a scrambler, and it looks like wide receiver Corey Malone had 2 interceptions while we had a linebacker with 90 tackles. When you combine that with not getting fired and also losing no players to the transfer portal, I think we're set up to win a few games next season, and we got both of those prospects, so our recruiting class was even better than the one from year 2, coming in at 47. Now when I scroll through these players, the overalls aren't as high, but I think we filled in all the gaps that we needed to, and like I said I would, I'm going to put Mark Norwood over at halfback. Just like last year, it looks like Antonio Thornton's gone up by 5 overalls, but his throw accuracy doesn't seem to be getting much better, and we're getting to the point in the rebuild where I can start to feel comfortable redshirting some of the freshmen we recruit. During season 4, we're going to play all 3 of the schools from Washington, and I'm proud to say that now Alaska's a pipeline state as well, but we still need to find some more prospects from Canada, and this season there are going to be 5 different ones to choose from, where 4 of them are 3 stars. This is also the most players I've ever seen in the state of Alaska, and 3 of them are 4-star recruits, so that was very needed because the state of Washington only produced 26 prospects this time around, and compared to the previous 2 seasons, this is a rough batch of guys, but there are still a couple I'd love to land, like defensive tackle Joe Rhodes. I will say it's nice to see that we're not supposed to be the worst team in the country, but we're still not great, only at a 70 overall, and I could hop into that one to guarantee the win, but I feel like we'll come out on top, and we do. As for recruiting though, you're going to see that we're starting to lose a lot of points on some of these players, and I don't see us taking down Washington State, but we can hope for the best, and they blew us out. It's kind of scary that we're already 4 years into this 10-season rebuild, and we still have almost no chance at beating our rivals Washington. At some point we're going to have to compete, but for now my main focus is just getting players to visit versus South Dakota State, and going into that one we're probably going to be sitting at 1-3, which we are. are. Having FCS schools on our schedule has definitely saved us because it's my only chance at keeping my job, and I just got a coach point that I'm going to put into royal treatment, so this visit means more. We really need to go out and win this one, and it looks like this is still not cold enough for it to be snow, but we are on pace to put up the first points of the day, and Thornton sees freshman Lawrence Savoy over at the 5-yard line. From here, Chance Learier should be able to take it in for us, but points are always super hard to come by, and I'm going to try to find our 6'8 tight end if he gets open, but we have the slant instead. Corey Malone cannot be making mistakes like that, but I feel like we're going to be stuck taking our 3 unless this works out, and Adam Bowen actually held on to the football. Antonio Thornton's been having a pretty solid day, and he is going to throw another tutty, so I'm super glad that we were able to get this freshman receiver. And midway through the third quarter, Chance Learier is going to find the end zone, so we've been able to get the win over South Dakota State, but our defense deserves a lot of the credit in this game. It also helps that the Jackrabbits players can't catch either, and Antonio Thornton put up a decent stat line, but he's been getting way too many carries, so we are going to switch up our offense. It looks like we were only able to land 2 different prospects, but I'm sure as the year goes on, we're going to have a lot more that decide to come in, and all it took was simming 1 more week for the floodgates to open. Aside from these 5 battles at the top of our board, we're going to land every other player we're going after, and all I want is to not get fired at the end of the year, so I'm going to use the 2 other games we can hop into to play some of these matchups, and I think our first one's going to be at Fresno State, so we're going to sim to that. I knew we were close on getting locked out of Reggie Harper though, so I paused the sim so we could open this battle back up, and at home against Wyoming, who isn't the best of teams, they beat us by 20. My job security continues to drop, but that would all change if we could take down Fresno State, and it's time to see if we can pull off the miracle. I don't know why, but it seems to rain for almost every game we play, and we've not done a great job of keeping up with the Bulldogs. We are not going to pick this up, and that drop's going to hurt us, but at least we're only going to be down by 4. One thing I have noticed is our defense plays pretty well for being a low overall, and this throw on the run should have been intercepted. It was, and the expectation is probably that we do something with that drive, but we're not able to complete the pass. From that point forward, Fresno State hasn't made a mistake, and I'm embarrassed to say that they've made our defense look silly. We can't stop them. We stayed in that one for longer than I thought we would, but they tore us apart in the second half, and I'd love to mention the fact that I've continued to get players to commit to Alaska, but the quality of prospect has not been very high. What we need are these 5 players on our board, which we're all in tight battles for, and as I sim to the end of the year, a lot of it's out of my control because we're going to deal with some lockouts and I can't break it. Boise State would also beat us by 3, and we continue to either lose prospects to Arkansas or get locked out of them, so this is not how I wanted to end the year on the hot seat, but just like last season, we might not finish at the bottom of our division because we're playing UNLV and we have to beat them. We might have one of the worst offenses and defenses in the country, but their starting quarterback's out with an injury, and it's time to see if we can take down the Rebels. Well, it looks like Allegiant Stadium's glitched out with the field, so something with the import and getting the stadium from Madden and NCAA Football has gone wrong, and that means that we have to sim one of the most important matchups of this rebuild. With a minute and a half left, we're down by 5, and the game seems to still work, but this is just an eyesore to look at, so I'm going to skip most of this. I don't even know where the end zone is, but with 13 seconds left, we have an opportunity, and we need this rollout to work. But that was clearly not enough, and I'm just going to throw it straight to Sanders. I don't even know what to think right now. Allegiant Stadium has glitched out at the worst possible time, but we're going to throw it on the run, and that is inbounds. So we've lost one of the most important games in this rebuild, and I'm going to blame it on the fact that the field glitched out. I'm definitely going to get fired, and we're also going to lose out on the strong safety, Reggie Harper. So what a disappointing way to end season 4 of 10, but there are some positive takeaways like Antonio Thornton throwing for more touchdowns than interceptions, and it turns out even with an air raid offense, he was our leading rusher. As for receiving yards, Corey Malone put up pretty similar stats to his freshman year, and I've been fired for the 3rd time in 4 years. My expectations have been way too high for a new college, and I'm so excited to start at level 3 again. To make matters worse, some of the players that we've recruited are starting to graduate, and I can go all in on getting Fred Robertson. I will say our recruiting class ranking's been getting a lot better, but the level of talent has not, as this is probably our 2nd worst one, so it was a pleasant surprise to see that Shane Davis becomes a 71 overall wide receiver. Well, aside from our senior kicker, our best 3 players are all on the offensive side of the ball, and even though we've only been recruiting in 3 states, we have way too many players. After cutting a lot of really bad backups, we're ready for season 5, and we only have 5 seniors, so I don't need to sign that many players this time around. It took a while, but I can finally start to search for quality instead of quantity, and I'm hoping that eventually we can make Canada a pipeline state, but that could take a while, and I have found our dream prospect. 97 speed halfback Graham Brewer is from Alaska, and this time around I found a ton of good players, but he is still the #1 guy I want. I have a feeling I know how his recruitment's gonna go, but as you can see, he's at the top of our board, and I have to show these stats again, they're insane. I don't know how we're gonna convince him to come to the 125th best program in the country, but maybe we'll have a good year because this is our highest overall by far, and compared to some of the other teams in the Mountain West, we're not that that far behind them. That's why it's crucial we start this year with a good result, and we're playing an FCS school that we beat, and the credit has to go to Antonio Thornton, who had a pretty good game. The junior quarterback only has 2 more seasons with us, and it looks like Nebraska's in the lead for Graham Brewer, but we're only losing 60 points every week. Because we need quality over quantity, I'm just going to try to get all these top prospects even if we're losing points as well, and look at Jeff Singletary, who we have a lead on. I would instantly make this guy a quarterback and then redshirt him for a year, and it's a good thing we're always going to have Eastern Washington on the schedule, because that should help us start season 5 2-0, and that's what happens. We had 3 different players with 2 rushing touchdowns each, and I wish a result like that would get some of these players to want to come here more. It looks like with Graham Brewer, Nebraska's still up, and he's already scheduled visits with 2 different programs, so we have to pick a week, and you know what? Let's do San Diego State. Every single one of these guys is going to come for that game, and we just have to hope they're still ranked by then, because if they are, that would be a big result for us, but they play at number 4 Kansas State, so that's not good, and we're going to take on the Rams. This is a winnable one, and I want to start the year 3-0, so we're going to hope for the best in Anchorage Stadium, and Antonio Thornton's led us down the field so far, where on 3rd and 8, that pass was well off target. We are very fortunate that none of those defenders could catch it, and it's starting to hit me that we're pretty much at the midway point in this rebuild, where we still haven't completed a single one of these challenges, and for the final 2 seasons, we're going to be thrown into the toughest conference in the game, so I'm not looking forward to that. By the end of the first quarter, it's still 3-0, but to start the second, we should just punch this one in with Learier, and we have to go for it on 4th down. I think the triple option is a good play to go with, and it works out, so now we're up by 2 possessions versus the Rams, but they'd score a touchdown, so to end the first half, we need to do the same thing, and we come close. With no timeouts remaining, we have to make sure that this pass is not completed inbounds, and I wish we could just hand it off, but we cannot risk it here. So to see our junior tight end come down with it is a big deal, and Alaska's actually starting to get decent at football. At the end of the day, the Nanooks are going to get a pretty easy win over Colorado State, and right now we're sitting at 3-0. I know it's not going to last, since next up on the schedule is number 2 UCLA, but I will say this was much closer than I thought it would be, and if there's going to be any chance of us landing some of these prospects, I have to get an upgrade. I've saved up the Coach XP so we can put points in the locksmith when needed, and that is very useful to have, because now we're back in the running for guard Andrew Mitchell, but I have to note something about the race with Graham Brewer. Nebraska's very close to closing it out, and our visit week isn't until week 9, so that's not very encouraging to see, and we're going to lose at Nevada. I also don't love how good our rivals Washington are, because at some point we have to beat them in the rebuild, but now is not the time for that, and in the first game we've played them at home, we lose by 30. The important matchup is finally here though, because it is visit week for Graham Brewer, and we need as many points as possible, so I'm putting 2 into royal treatment. Going into this one, San Diego State's sitting at the top of our conference, and they're 4-2, but we get to play it at home, and their starting running back broke his collarbone, so if we play well, I feel like we could come out on top, and we need to impress all the visiting recruits. I don't care if we lose every other game this season, how we do in this matchup is so important, and after getting that stop, we've been driving down the field where we're going to pick up this 3rd and 9, so I really like how things are looking, and that is a touchdown. Athlete Corey Malone was able to get in for us, and we're just going to drop back with some cover 3 on this long 3rd and 15. I get the user pick, and right now my confidence is through the roof. We're going to find our tight end, and he is broken free. We're getting off to a perfect start, especially since their quarterback's a 94 overall, and they just can't move the ball. As time winds down in this first half, the halfback screen over to our backup running back is going to go for a 1st down, and here on 3rd and goal, he is going to have a big gap. Mark Norwood has to fill in because our starter just got hurt, and Chance Learier's out for the rest of the game with a concussion, but because we got off to such a good start, it's going to be super hard for them to come back against us, and it took them until there were 4 minutes left in this game to finally reach the end zone, but their onside kick didn't go as planned, and we're about to beat a ranked team for the first time in school history. Just to play it safe, we're going to take the 3-possession lead, and we're going to walk away with a huge win, where Antonio Thornton didn't even play the best, but we did what we needed to, landing 2 high overall commits and staying in some battles. Our future quarterback Jeff Singletary is officially with us, and then we also have some other guys here, but the main focus has always been athlete Graham Brewer, and we're behind by 25. We're also just a game behind in our conference, so we could still win it, but that would mean beating teams like Wyoming on the road, and we did by a ton. With these 4 games left, I'd say this is a pretty winnable schedule, but unfortunately, Nevada does have the tiebreaker over us, and we've been locked out from Chris Vickers, but I think we can get back into it. With another coach point laying around, we have level 2 locksmith, and that gives us 2 more open the doors, so even if we don't make the cut, we can always hop back in. I don't know if we're going to get these higher overall prospects, but we might as well try, and then these lower overall guys we're definitely going to land. So I'd say everything's coming together, but we will see how these next few weeks go, and I was afraid we'd pick up a loss like that while Michigan's jumped up to number 1. I'm going to be so upset if they steal our star running back from us, but we beat Hawaii in overtime, so we're bowl eligible in year 5, and we just got a big commit. Isaac Brown is a 76 overall defensive end, and I don't know what happened in Nevada, but if we didn't lose to Fresno State, we could have still won our conference. We'll see how things shake up after this next week, but we might be playing against UNLV, and it's not good news to see 2 recruits have locked us out, but there are a lot of yellow names. If Fresno State loses this week, there could still be a 4-way tie where we could somehow get in, but to make that happen, we have to beat UNLV, and Michigan's dropped out of the battle for Graham Brewer. We could get Chris Vickers, and we need some more open the doors. I only have 1 left right now that we're going to use on Andrew Mitchell, but I have a coach point, so that's going to give us 2 more this year, and that's all we really need. There's also 0 chance I get fired, so I've finally kept my job, and let's get into our matchup against UNLV. Well, it's finally snowing in Alaska, and it was about time we played in some realistic conditions, but we haven't performed too well because with a couple minutes left, we've yet to score, so that's not a good sign that we're going to beat UNLV. And what was our offensive line doing there? We are crumbling when we need to come out on top, and Greg Sears is going to get open, but we have still yet to reach the end zone, and it doesn't happen here. We couldn't have had a better opportunity, but the drop pass is going to sting, and Thornton is not able to make it himself, so it comes down to this 3rd and goal that they are going to lock up. If we do not punch this in, I am going to lose my mind, but we do. So that was a decent way to end the first half for us, and they've gotten us to a 3rd and 10 near the end of the 3rd quarter where I'm going to try to throw it up to Corey Malone. It was underthrown, but he still caught it. I feel like we just got bailed out, but I'm perfectly fine with that because we desperately needed it, and he is going to get open here. UNLV's putting together a pretty good drive to respond right back though, but it took us 1 play to score a touchdown, and then they got 1 immediately too. You sim a couple of plays, but you don't expect the score to change that much. We're going to get this 4th and inches, and I think if we reach the end zone, I'm just going to go for the 2-point conversion. I cannot risk this game going on any longer. Both offenses have really started to figure things out at the end of the game, so there's no telling who'd come out on top, and I think it's going to come down to 2-point conversions either way, so I'd rather just have it happen during regulation. But we do find ourselves on a 3rd and 15 where our seam up the middle is going to be caught, and it looks like they're going with man-to-man coverage, so we're going to take it. I think that'll get us the win over UNLV. And what a wild 4th quarter this has been with the final pass of the game. There's no way that that was going to reach the end zone, but they caught it, so that could have been really bad for us. And Fresno State didn't lose, so we're not going to make the conference championship. I have some more bad news, as you're going to see that we lost out on Chris Vickers, but I'm still really proud of Antonio Thornton, who led this team, and even though his stats weren't the best, it was about time that Chance started to put up some better numbers. Receiving wise, Corey Malone actually fell off while Greg Sears became our number 1 guy, and I'm so confused how we didn't get into a bowl game. Other teams like 6-6 Boise State and 6-6 Navy got one, but we didn't, so it's on to season 6, and this is the first player that's transferring out. All I care about is landing Graham Brewer though, so we're putting 7,000 into him, and after not making a bowl game, if we don't get this, I'm going to be upset, but that's what I like to see. Of course, we lost out on Andrew Mitchell by 35 points to Washington, but at the end of the day, we somehow signed a top 25 class, and these are some of the best recruits that this school's ever seen. We needed a quarterback of the future, and that's going to be Jeff Singletary, while at halfback, Graham Brewer becomes an 81 overall, and we've been needing some corners, so Keith Jones is going to be moved over there, while Chris Brown can just be depth at wide receiver. I'm proud to say that we have our first 90 overall in quarterback Antonio Thornton, and we've still signed too many players, so I have to cut a lot of guys. We're at the midway point in the rebuild now, and we still haven't completed a single challenge, which isn't good because we only have 3 years left in the Mountain West, and then after that, as of right now, we would be thrown into the Big Ten. With only 5 years left though, that means any freshman I redshirt now we're going to have for the remainder of this rebuild. And putting together a non-conference schedule has been difficult because all the smaller schools near us are in the Mountain West. Since we're losing 21 seniors, I assume we have some team needs, and they're all on defense. But it's also important to note that 3 of them are from Canada, so it's never going to be a pipeline state. This batch of prospects definitely isn't as fun because besides a wide receiver and a punter, there's not many I want to go after. But because we got who we wanted last year, we're up to an 86, and I know our preseason projection isn't the highest, but I feel like this is the year that we win the Mountain West Conference, and we just need Sim to be on our side, which might not be the case. We should have beaten Eastern Washington by a lot more, and Oregon State takes us down. And to make matters worse, on the 2 prospects I'm going after, we're losing a decent amount of points every week. We are a higher overall team than the Cougars though, so at home versus Washington State, we're going to go out, and that's going to be a bad loss. That's not what you want to see, and Washington's beating us out for Gordon Dickerson, but we do have a chance at getting the punter. So not much is going our way, but it's the start of conference play, and I feel like it's safe to assume that we should come out on top in this one, and we barely did in overtime. We'd also land our first commit while losing the wide receiver we needed, and I'm going to go ahead and schedule everybody for a visit against Nevada. Assuming we beat them, I'm hoping that we're able to land a lot of these players, but they're only a few overalls worse than us, and our star running back is injured, so this is the first of 3 regular season games I'm hopping into, and we cannot lose this one to the Wolfpack. As we approach halftime, our offense has definitely taken a hit without a rushing attack, but Travis Green holds on to tie it back up at 7, and even though they'd score a touchdown right after, we're going to make it 14-all. The issue is the Wolfpack just keeps scoring, so it would be big if they don't reach the end zone on this one, but they do, and with a minute left in the 3rd quarter, I don't know if we're going to be able to come away in this this one. And things are even more difficult because Corey Malone just got injured, so I'm going to have to find Greg Sears and he brings it in. But I don't like our best wide receiver being out for 5 weeks, and we've got to get the Wolfpack off of the field on this 3rd and 14 where they dump it off and we make the tackle. If I've learned anything from this game, it's the fact that winning the Mountain West Conference is not going to be easy, but I still believe we have the roster to do it, and we're about to tie it back up. It has been a battle, but during this 4th quarter, we've been putting up a good fight, and with that drag route, they're not going to get the first. So we have gotten it back, and all we need is a field goal to win this game over Nevada. That wasn't too hard to pull off, and this kick is going to give us the win, but we had to fight super hard for that one, and Antonio Thornton's the only reason it happened. Because we won, though, I'm seeing a ton of yellow names, and I feel like I could scroll forever to show all the prospects that just committed. Most importantly, we have our kicker for the rest of this rebuild, and I have a feeling that even if we land some of these players that we're going after, I'm just going to end up cutting them. There's not many important guys on our board, so we're just going to go back to simming. But before we do that, we have to play on the road at San Diego State, because if we want to make the conference championship, we have to beat them. It's on the road, which means it's going to be a hard matchup, and we're still without 2 of our best offensive players, but I think we'll be fine. We should get at least a field goal out of this drive. And you know what? We might as well go for it on 4th and 2 where our tight end got open and he catches it. That was a close call, but it should pay off if we could just punch it in. And I don't know how they just gave us a touchdown, but I guess it counts. We're about to follow it up with more points as well, and I just threw it straight to them. You know it's been a defensive game. When approaching the end of the 3rd quarter, it's still 7-3. And on 3rd and 13, I'm hoping that we can at least pick this up. We do to Savoy, and he takes it down to the 1. We have not done well offensively, but this is our chance to get a 2-possession lead over them. And our defense is starting to collapse at the worst time with Goody taking it to the 2. The Aztecs are very close to getting back into this game, and Greg Randall's trying to take off, but it won't work. So now it's 2nd and goal. We're going to run commit on Paul, and he doesn't get in. 3rd and goal now. It's another handoff. Scruggs is going to try to make the tackle, but they broke it, and with the 2-point conversion, that slant was not open. We have zones over there, and somehow they still caught it, so we have to run out the rest of this clock. If we make the Mountain West Conference Championship, this would be the result that does it, and Norwood's going to catch this pitch, and that means they're down to just 1 timeout remaining because they had to burn one to stop the clock. Personally, I think it's dumb that you can run out of bounds before 2 minutes left, and it won't stop the clock, but because of the last first down we got, this one's over, and the Aztecs are not going to take us down even though they played at home. That is back-to-back big wins without some of our best players, so that proves that this team has some good depth. But next on the schedule is number 4 Washington. I can't waste a game jumping into this one, and they destroyed us. From this point though, we have a 2-game lead over everybody in our division, so conference matchups have been going much better for us, and I'm just going to advance a few weeks into the future. If we don't lose any of these, I think we've clinched our spot into the conference championship, but we dropped 1, and now I'm kind of nervous we're going to drop another versus Hawaii, but we don't. I think it's dumb that Washington's even stealing the 65 overalls from us, and the one player I really wanted, Jesse Williams, might choose Kansas State. But our main focus this year's been making the conference championship, and we're so close. All we have to do is take down New Mexico. But going into this, they're ranked 24th, and it might be November 17th in game, but the field is completely clear with no snow on the ground. If we can't have that, at least we could get a win over a good team, and we've beaten a ranked school before, so I'm confident that we can go out and do the same today. Antonio Thornton's had a pretty good career with the Nanooks, and he's leading us down the field to where we're hopefully going to go up 14-0, so you can tell that he wants to end his senior year the right way, and the Lobos have not been able to keep up with us as we're going to find the end zone again. This might be the best team we have for the next couple of years, but there's a reason for that because it's basically been 2 entire full recruiting classes, and all that's thanks to me redshirting the first group of guys I brought in. It paid off because now we're actually able to get some wins, but I am worried about how we're going to do once they graduate, so it's a good thing we continue to build up this roster, but we did lose this guy to Baylor, and all that's left is Jesse Williams. No matter what happens at UNLV, we're going to make the Mountain West Championship, and we took them down. So I'd say that season 6 is going pretty well, but we did fail to bring in Jesse Williams, and it's time for the conference championship. We are favored to win it, but for whatever reason, Air Force gets to host it, and I don't understand why because we both went 7-1 in conference play. Now, there was a team that beat us, but I can't remember who it was, so if it was them, that would make some sense. And after stopping us on our first drive, we have them on a 3rd and 10 where we give it up to Cooley. I honestly don't think beating them is going to be that bad because of the type of offense they run. We just got to knock them out here, but instead they break the tackle to get another first on us, and can we make the tackle, please? I mean, eventually, we have got to get them off of the field. There we go. It should be here. Come on. And with a 4th and 2, they simply try to go with the quarterback option, and they have broken free. We have got to get a stop at some point. I feel like they always pick things up whenever we're so close to having it, and that led to them scoring a touchdown where we'd then take a sack, so it's 3rd and 20, but I feel like we could beat them deep. The play action worked to perfection, and I'll take it. If we're going to win the Mountain West, we're going to have to fight, and with the read option, I trust that Thornton will be able to fight his way in. I've never sent a blitz on 3rd down, so maybe that's our solution, and it turns out that it's not. Oh gosh, I just missed 2 tackles, and they're going to get a huge game because of it. In fact, he is gone. No one's catching him. I should have never said that it it was going to be easy to beat Air Force. They're actually a really solid team. And on 1st and 10, we beat the press, so it's all tied up. At some point, we have to get a 3rd down stop on them, though, and I'm all over their running back where they still get it. And I just feel like I've gotten unlucky time and time again. We can't get them off the field. They're probably going to end the first half scoring another touchdown unless we can get a sack, and we finally do. So they're only going to go up by 3, and I'll take it. I'd also like to try and bomb them. We just have to hope it's not underthrown, and it is. That was so far behind Green. They're going to get the interception. So even though Antonio Thornton has like 90 throw power, it's not going to matter. This is a massive 3rd and 1, but of course they're going to pick it up and also break a tackle. So that would lead to another touchdown, and I'm starting to think that Air Force is going to come away with the win in this game, as that is such an inaccurate throw. It's another bad one from Thornton, but a holding call has saved the day for us because there's no way that they pick up this 3rd and 19. And we're driving down the field where Chance Learier's going to take this handoff, juke to the outside, and with some good blocks, he is going to be gone to the house. This has been a battle, but I feel like we could come back if we could just get them off of the field. And they're running press man-to-man coverage on 3rd and 10. I don't know if we're able to hit this pass, but I did it anyway, and Sears has broken free. Greg Sears might have just won us the Mountain West, but we still have to come away with one more defensive stop, and that should be a sack on Baldwin. I could not tell you why they're punting it, but that is game-changing. All we have to do is run out the rest of the clock. I think they could stop our offense, and I don't believe they're going to be able to do that. I mean, they've gotten us to a 3rd and 7, but all we have to do is pick this up. It's over as long as we stay in bounds, and we have finally completed a challenge in this video. It took us forever, but we have won a conference championship, and this was definitely the year to do it because we're about to lose a ton of seniors, but it looks amazing. I even counted, and it turns out we're losing 16 of our 22 starters, but I don't care. We've gotten this team into a bowl game, and they couldn't snub us this year, but it's going to be difficult. As for some of our stats, Antonio Thornton made sure he improved every year, and when Chance Learier went down, Mark Norwood, our backup, took over pretty well. Corey Malone was also hurt for most of the year, so that's why he wasn't our leading receiver, and we were only halfway there to passing for 5,000 yards, so we got a long way to go if we're ever going to complete that objective and some of these others. After this season, there's just 4 of them left, and something is glitching out with Allegiant Stadium again, so it's become pretty clear to me that I just can't play there on this Dynasty file, and if we don't score back-to-back touchdowns, we're going to lose anyway, but that would be the first. And of course, we missed the extra point. I'm sorry for the funky-looking gameplay, but if we can't get them off the field on 3rd and 4, it's going to be over, and one of these days we'll win a bowl, but it wasn't this year. I'm still very happy with all the steps we put forward, and we even put Antonio Thornton onto the NFL, but losing him definitely stings a bit, and we've already completed our recruiting class, so there's nobody else for me to go after. Even with a rough pool of prospects to choose from, we finished 65th, and the biggest move I'm making is making our punter a kicker. All this other stuff is just pretty minor, but Xavier Gorman becomes a 76, and then 64 overall Darius Bergstrand actually becomes a 70. Because we need some wide receivers, I'm also going to make tight end Marcus Davis one, and as I move these linebackers around, I find out that some of them make for some better defensive linemen. Even after losing all the starters that we did, I'm not sure how much of a step back our team took, and halfback Graham Brewer looks incredible, who I have to pair with freshman quarterback Jeff Singletary, even if he is the lower overall. I think recruiting is about to be a lot easier too, because now we have Kitchen Sink 2 available, and with just 4 years left, we don't have that much time to let players develop, so when filling these team needs, we have to look for some higher overalls, and the pool of players we're choosing from is never going to be that big. For the first time as well, our non-conference schedule doesn't consist of any FCS schools, so even though we're projected to finish 52nd, we'll see if that happens, and it turns out we did drop 2 overalls, but that's fine because we're still projected to win our conference. To open up year 7, I'm hoping for the best out of our freshman quarterback, and he gets us the win, but he didn't have a great game through the air, so it looks like everything came on the ground instead. If we can run the ball like that more often, we're going to win a lot of football games, and maxing out Kitchen Sink should give us a great chance to land all these guys. I'm very excited with how the board looks. We don't have many needs, but those guys cover the ones we do have, and Oregon State comes into our place to beat us, so that's a little disappointing, and I swear it is always Washington who's beating us out for the guys that we want. I'm going to schedule them all for a visit versus San Jose State, but I'm not happy we're set to lose multiple of them to the Huskies, and between Washington and UCLA, both of those teams have been tough pains on our schedule. I want to save the games we can hop into for these conference ones, but then I noticed that we're a much higher overall than San Jose State, so we should be able to sim it and get the win. I don't like that these are the 2 names I'm seeing at quarterback though, because that means we've lost our starter, and freshman Jeff Singletary tore his MCL, so he's out for 6 weeks. That result landed us some pretty big names like Craig Green and athlete Adam Lane, who has both 95 speed and 95 route running, but without our starting quarterback, I don't see season 7 going that well for us, and we just got a huge win over the Wolfpack. We'll see what happens in the next one, and we lose. Theoretically, we should do even better with an 89 overall senior, but Fine has not done that for us in sim, and at home against Washington, they destroyed us. Even at 3 and 4, we have a chance to win our conference, but for whatever reason, Fresno State isn't on our schedule, so I've kind of just lost hope, and I'm curious to see how these play out. We win, but I probably should have hopped into some sooner, and against Air Force, we get another one. That makes things very interesting because not only are we picking up more commits, but we're also in some tight battles for the highest overalls that we started targeting. And if Fresno State would just lose, it would be possible to make the Mountain West Championship. They only have 2 conference games left though, and they're pretty easy, so I'll continue to leave it up to Sim. And at this point in the year, we might have our freshman quarterback back out there on the field. However, Fine is still in, so I'm wrong about that, and Norwood's rushing for a ton. But that means Graham Brewer is also hurt, and we had another out for the season wide receiver in Marcus Davis. Because of all those injuries, we have to act like this year's not even happening. And I know Fresno State lost a game, but they have the tiebreaker inside the division, so it's not going to matter. I don't get how we didn't end up on their schedule, but I think it's going to cost us. Because even though we won out, we weren't able to make the conference championship, and it's all because of the 1-point loss I sim versus San Diego State. We also made the Las Vegas Bowl again, which is unplayable, but we are a higher overall team than Missouri, so I'll let Sim handle this one instead of playing in Allegiant Stadium, and there we go. That's the first bowl game win in program history, and these are what the season stats look like. But the main focus has to be on backup running back Mark Norwood, who put up some insane stats. Even though he's not our fast running back, I might make him the starter for his senior year, and I couldn't tell you how these stats are going to get Clint Fine drafted, but he's projected to be alongside Justin Neal and Michael Anderson. So we're set to lose a lot of good players this year, just like last season. And even Kyle Jackson had his name pulled at the very last second. As for recruiting, all 4 of these prospects are left, and I have to figure out how to split up the points. But I think even with the letter of intent upgrade, I'm only going to be able to get 2 of them. It's very risky to go for 3, but I think I'm going to try it anyway. And it didn't work, but we got the best 2 that I wanted, so I'm completely fine with that, and no amount of points would have won us either of these prospects. With all of the signees that we got the 30th best class, and I don't think that makes that much sense considering the overalls fall off pretty quickly, but I'll definitely take it, and Adam Lane becomes a 74 wide receiver. As for Tyler Smith, if I throw him at quarterback, he's a 70, and as much as I want to start our 99 speed halfback, the senior ended up jumping him in overall. This is our last season in the Mountain West, so we better make it count, and now that we have a new defensive coordinator, I'm feeling so much better. This is what our schedule looks like going into season 8, and if there's any position group we need to focus on in recruiting, it's definitely wide receiver. Now, unfortunately, the states we can recruit in didn't produce anyone besides Tom Russell, but on the bright side, we're starting the season not very far outside the top 25, and we have to make the most out of our final season in the Mountain West. As of right now, it looks like we're going to be joining the Big Ten next, and I've also learned that I can now put a 14-team playoff in using the playoff tool, so that's what we're going to do, and with an 88 overall team, I think we'll make it. Anything less than a blowout versus Eastern Washington at this point in the series would just be a disappointment, and our hardest home game of the year will probably be against Washington State, so I'm hoping this is the season that we can finally go undefeated at home, but more importantly, also take down our rivals, and if we're ever going to win some championships, we need to start putting some points into the game management coach tree. This could be a huge moment for quarterback Jeff Singletary, and he's facing a defense that already has 2 injuries, so hopefully he doesn't get injured himself, and this is the season that we really put Alaska on the map. Here in the second quarter, it's still tied up at 0, and they're going for it on a 4th and 1, but they're saying they didn't get a foot down, and that is huge because they should have had 6. It's safe to say they didn't take advantage of that opportunity, and that's a laser over to Fulton to get the first. But until we finish this drive, the job is not over, and Mark Norwood, our starting halfback's out for 2 quarters. That's perfectly fine though, because his backup is 99 speed Graham Brewer, and he catches this football while also breaking the tackle, so we should have no issues getting points on the Huskies, and it looks like with his speed, he is able to get the outer edge. I'm gonna have a ton of fun using him in the future, and I'm so proud of our defense for the way they've shown up today, but we cannot give up this 3rd and 9, and that's exactly what we just did. Can someone please make the tackle on their quarterback? He's still going. I was complimenting our guys too prematurely, but we're still gonna force them off the field, and I just realized that Brewer also plays on the defensive side of the ball for us. I had no idea the halfback was our 3rd string corner, and I didn't even put him there, but time is ticking before the half, and I want to get at least 3. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to pull it off, and Singletary's going to have to use his legs to try and make something happen, but even if he couldn't, I'm happy with this, because we have a 2-possession lead and our rivals haven't scored, so all our defense has to do is keep playing well, and it's time we find out if the Huskies have recruited a kicker or not. That wasn't the best one. It didn't look great, but it still worked out for them, and on 3rd and 9, I'm finding Davis to get us to the red zone, so we are driving down the field, and I can just tell that Graham Brewer is going to be a ton of fun. I'm starting to think that I should be starting him just to make sure that he continues to develop, but we saw last season the type of stats that Mark Norwood's able to put up, and it seems like we're going to finally take down Washington. They're stuck on a 4th and 22, and despite being down by 14, they're attempting this field goal, which is not going to have enough. They've made it pretty easy on us to run out the rest of the clock and get the win. That's some great blocks, and our starting running back's healthy again. From what I just saw, we are a playoff team, and there's no reason we shouldn't run through the Mountain West. But another thing I have to point out is we finally completed the easiest challenge, and in recruiting, the Nanooks are in a lot of battles, but none of these are ones that we can't come out on top of. Speaking about top as well, you'll see that we have made it to the top 25, and I think we have a higher overall than every team in our conference, so I'm excited to see how these next few weeks go, but we lose to Colorado State. I can't believe it, we just didn't have a good day, and of course that drops us out of the top 25, but I think we'll still be fine, and I'm scheduling everybody for Visit versus Washington State. That's going to be a massive matchup if we're going to be able to reel in any of these prospects, and surely we wouldn't lose to ULM as well. That would ruin our playoff chances, but they beat us by 2. We just dropped from the top 25 all the way down to 47th in the polls, and we also just lost a home game, so I have no words right now. I no longer think we can go with a run-heavy offense. I think we need to pass the ball more, and if we drop another, this year's definitely over, but we take down the Wolfpack. To be honest, I don't think we're going to climb back into the top 14, so our final season in an easier conference is most likely going to go to waste, but we beat Washington State. That's going to get some of the players I wanted to commit, like that corner and left end, but at this point in the rebuild, we have to be winning more than just recruiting battles, so maybe these guys are going to be the ones that help us get over the hump. I know that we have the roster to win our conference again, but that hasn't seemed to make that much of a difference, and we do take down San Diego State. I just feel like we need to sim most of these games because I don't know how we'd make the playoffs, and am I really seeing that correctly? We just beat a team by 70 while putting up over 600 total yards. This is a three-headed rushing attack, even though we went to a pass-heavy offense, and between us and San Jose State, we could make the conference championship, but unfortunately, they're not on our schedule, so we have to make sure that we win out, and with our strength of schedule, we're not moving up the rankings that much. I hate to be so pessimistic, but no matter what happens, we're just not going to have much come out of this season, and we have the tiebreaker over San Jose State, so I'm hoping we can win our conference. The last team standing between us and that would be Boise State, so I am going to hop into this one, and look at that, it's actually snowing in Alaska. From what I've been able to see, this is by far the best team we've had, but those 2 close losses in sim are going to cost us, and our offensive line should have won that battle, but at least they're going to win this one. In the end, we'd win by 14 points, and we would have won all our home games if ULM didn't upset us, so it's frustrating, and you'll see that we have sneaked back into the top 25. We have this week in the conference championship week to climb up 11 spots and make the playoffs, but I still don't see that happening, so I've just been focusing on getting these 3 guys, because after this year, I'm not going to worry much about recruiting. We clearly should be more concerned about our game management skill tree, and in our final season in the Mountain West, we're going to have a spot in the conference championship, but because all these 9-3 teams played better competition than us, there's no way that we leapfrog all of them. I don't like it, but it's our fault, and Colorado State gets to host this. I feel like the conference just doesn't want to play a conference championship in Alaska, because we have the better record, but they beat us this year, and I can't believe I forgot this was our first loss on the road. With that in mind, it's no shock that they've kept it very competitive through this first half, and I don't think we're getting points before the end of the half either, unless Norwood makes a big play, but that was exactly what we needed, and I'm going to take the sack. It has been a rough day for Alaska fans, but with the cover 2, we should have a wide open wide receiver. Davis has one guy to beat, and what on earth was that defense? I mean, it was terrible throughout the entire second half, which is why we've been able to run away with this one. So we're going to get our revenge versus the Rams, but we only have 2 seasons left to win 2 national championships, and I don't think I realized how hard of a challenge I set out for this video. Jeff Singletary can continue to play well like this, but I don't want any more conference championships, because I just want to be in the playoffs, and I don't think the game's going to bail us out. This is the moment of truth though, and we're going to finish at number 23, and we've made the Las Vegas Bowl yet again, so we keep getting the same matchup over and over, and we're going to get another trophy. Jeff Singletary didn't come close to touching 5,000 passing yards, and Mark Norwood regressed even though we gave him the starting job again, but junior wide receiver Shane Davis really stood out with 93 receptions and 15 touchdowns. He only has 84 speed, but he just made a massive jump as a junior, and that's made him want to declare for the draft already, but we are not going to let him go. He's going to at least stay to get his college degree. We're already having to give up some other studs, so I can't have him gone too. And I don't know how TJ Harrison got drafted because he rarely played a snap. I do have some big news though, and that's the fact that we just got a level 30 offensive coordinator. So we now have every boost imaginable, and I think that we're about to bring in all 3 of these prospects as well. Sure enough, all 3 of them have committed to Alaska. So we've signed our best recruiting class yet, coming in at number 18. And I'm pretty sure if you compared this board to our preseason recruiting one, you're going to see every player committed that we went after. With all the good news though, it is time that we find out which conference we're going to be joining, and it is going to be the SEC. So that's a little intimidating considering all these other ones are ranked much lower. And besides our quarterback, I'm not sure if this team's any better than last year's. Another issue we're going to run into is Jeff Singletary's definitely gone to the NFL. So we have to figure out who our starter will be next year. And I know it makes no sense to put Alaska in the SEC, but maybe it does with how realignment works now, and you'll see I forgot to put points into game management. I thought it was the end of the world, but then I realized that we still have to find a quarterback, and there's only 2 options inside our pipeline. Our savior though could be this 4-star athlete from Canada, and we're about to find out if Eric Brown can throw the football, but he can't. I don't think I've showed you all our other quarterback options, but they're not very good, and if Jeff Singletary leaves early for the NFL, our 10th year is going to to consist of Tyler Smith. His stats really aren't that bad, but I think his awareness brings him down, and it might not even matter because we have to win 2 championships in these final 2 years. But there's also a lot of other challenges we have to complete, and this schedule's brutal. We might be going into the year just ranked inside the top 25, but in the SEC, that's only enough to get us projected to finish mid-table, and I needed some good news, so I'm glad that I checked out the Heisman Watch page. If we're ever going to throw for 5,000 yards, it's now, so we're going over to an air raid, and I don't care that Jeff Singletary's a scrambler. With recruiting, there's really not many players I care about getting, but I did find this JUCO tight end, and I'm just hoping I don't fail this rebuild challenge miserably. There's not many teams in the SEC we're going to be higher overalls than, so even though they're ranked number 10th, I had to sim it, and you know what? I'm glad Jeff Singletary threw it almost 50 times. Every single one of these is going to be a nail biter, and we have 2 very familiar opponents that are coming up next. I feel like we have to skip through both, so let's just hope Colorado State doesn't hand us our first loss again on the road, and they almost did. Even with all these results, Jeff Singletary's dropping on the Heisman watch, and to be honest, I don't think we're going to hop into a game until later in the year because our end of season schedule is a gauntlet. If we lose a road game early in the year to Georgia, it wouldn't affect our chance at making the playoffs, but later in the season, those losses hit a lot harder, and we are flying up the polls. It's a shame there weren't more prospects I cared about going after because it's so easy to recruit in the SEC, and we're actually better on paper than a lot of these teams, but I'm still so nervous for what I'm about to do, and that's advance all the way to week 10 where we go out and get a win, but we got 3 more big ones coming up and we beat the FCS school. I really wasn't concerned about that because we finish off with 2 road games, and we're 9 years into a dynasty, so maybe LSU's not that good anymore, we sneak by them. Over that time period, obviously we landed a ton of players, but the more exciting part is we are still undefeated and we are ranked number 3. Looking at our last 4 games, I know that these are going to be very tough, but after looking at our conference standings, I've decided which ones we're playing, and it's the final 3 because I want to play our last home game, so I'm simming versus Ole Miss, and there's another good result. To be honest, things are working out so far way better than I expected them to, but even if they are, we know that things are about to get super tough, and it's time for a difficult 3-game stretch. Up until now, we've had the number 1 offense in the country, but Jeff Singletary still needs to throw for 2,000 more yards, and it's not going to be snowing in this one. Since we're later in the season, I thought it might be, but what's more important is that we don't lose this, and we're going to hopefully get the 3rd down stop. They would still get a field goal out of it, but we have scored what should be the next 2 touchdowns if Brewer gets in, and it's so hard to catch our 99 speed running back. There's a good reason why our team has been so dominant this season, and we get the interception with Clark as well. He might be able to get a pick 6 out of this, and that is exactly what we need to end this first half. Ben Clark just made one of the best defensive plays in this dynasty, and no matter how hard Texas A&M tries, I don't think they can keep up with us. This is a very good sign that we could win our first championship this year, because I don't think anybody's going to be able to hold Graham Brewer, and we ended up dropping 49 points on them, so we're definitely still going to have the number 1 offense. Even if they're low overalls, we also got the rest of our recruiting board to commit, so I have no more players to go after, and this is going to be our final recruiting class. I know for a fact it won't finish at number 1, but it's nice to see that we had it for a second, and being in the SEC's made it so we could get anybody that we want, but our final 2 games are definitely going to test us. This is where Jeff Singletary could seal his Heisman win because the number 8 Sooners are up first, and they have a receiver that's going to be hard to stop. It looks like the weather's going to be accurate for this one too, so now we just have to go out and win in the snow, and here on 3rd and 12, we could get them off the field already. They take their check down, and that is perfect, exactly what we wanted. The only issue with that is offensively, we have really struggled, and on this 4th and 4, we are going to pick it up to Graham Brewer, but even by then, we're down by 7, and I figured after getting an early defensive stop, it wouldn't be the case, but Jeff Singletary's battled us back in it, and with 2 minutes left in this first half, Oklahoma has it on a 3rd and 14. There was no way that they picked that up, but they are going to tack on a field goal to go up by 3, and I'm hoping the play action gets the Sooners to bite, but it didn't, and our deep post route isn't really open. We didn't pick up the block well, but now I see him, and it's a good thing that I rolled out. Fulton has a lot of green or white grass in front of him, and he takes it to the 20-yard line. I had no clue what was happening live on that, but because we have a scrambling quarterback, I was able to avoid the sack, and he can still thread the needle too. This is what I've needed to see from our offense this entire game, and I'm hoping that none of that changes here in the 3rd quarter because we've been working it slowly down the field on them. No matter what it takes, I want to take a 2-possession lead on Oklahoma, and there it is. So if anybody was still wondering whether or not this team was legit, I think they're going to have their answer after this one, and we just got another nice stop. We've been able to hold on to our 2-possession lead for a while now, and we get a fumble, so I think this stop officially seals it, and we've kept our undefeated season alive, but we still have to take down Texas. I'm also taking note that we have some finalists for some defensive awards, and one of the challenges is winning one of these, so this is a massive deal. I don't know if it's going to be possible to get 2 championships, but I feel like we should get one this season, and it's time to face the highest overall team we've played yet. Well, if there's anything I can be happy about, it's that it's snowing again. So it took 9 years, but the weather's finally starting to cooperate, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this rebuild so bad is because I love playing in the snow. We stop them on 3rd down, and that's how you open up a football game. Texas is already coming coming off of a loss, and a win today put them out of the playoff picture, so that's probably why they're hitting so hard, but we're still going to pick up this third down. And it's starting to hit me that we're probably going to lose Graham Brewer to the NFL early too. If we're able to win a championship this season, I'm not sure what's going to be left of our roster, but we couldn't get into the end zone, so that's not a good sign. And maybe this drive will end a little bit better than us, where I find our running back and he gets in. That makes it 10-0, but it's already starting to get super dark. So as this game goes on, I don't know if our stadium has the lights for it, and they're going to reach the end zone too. I mean, you can already see that it's pretty much just pitch black over there, which is realistic, but the shaders behind the end zone could be a little bit messed up, and we have our wheel route wide open. We've been able to maintain our 2-possession lead, but they're trying to come back with a few minutes left. So we have got to stop him, and by shooting the gap, that's what we do. It is 3rd and 8 now. They go with the halfback screen. We're all over it. I get the interception with Tanner, and this could be a pick 6 if their quarterback doesn't catch us. He doesn't, and what a play from our defense. This is why we have multiple players up for defensive awards, and Tim Tanner might not be, but he's a really good strong safety. That would pretty much cap off our win over the Longhorns, and Jeff Singletary should win the Heisman, but we have to play in the conference championship first, and that's going to be against Tennessee. After we joined it, the SEC had a down year, but it was still better than the Big Ten because we've been ranked above Illinois, and we're set up nicely to have a first-round bye in the playoffs. The only thing that could ruin that now is losing our first game. But as a Kentucky fan in real life, you know that I'm not going to let Tennessee do that to us, and I will take that slant over and over until it finally gets open. I don't love that we dropped it, but on 3rd down, I think I have to do what's best for us and just run with Singletary. So that sets up a 4th and goal where we do the halfback toss to the fastest player in the country and we get in. That should be an automatic touchdown every time, and what I'm going to do is roll out, be patient, and just wait for our receiver to get open. Tennessee's not doing a good job of keeping it close, and by the 4th quarter, it still isn't. I have to give credit to our defense. They've held the Volunteers to just 10 points in this one. They're not getting the 3rd down, so we could end the game with one more stop, and I've decided to send in a blitz. 7 players going at their quarterback. They find their running back open though, and Jones does not make the tackle in time while also getting thrown off. That is a little bit embarrassing. It's my fault for not getting in fast enough though, so I tried to do it this time, and eventually it would be 4th and 7 where I know they want to take a drag or something and they had someone open. Even with all this effort, at this point in the game, it's almost impossible to come back. So they've tried, they've put up a good effort, but I don't think it's going to matter, and we are going to force the fumble on them. Somehow they picked it up though, and I don't know why I'm still worried they could pull off the comeback against us. That drive took them so long, and we recover the onside kick, so we've won the SEC, we've stayed undefeated, and I tried to return it. Now it's time to find out if our quarterback's won the Heisman, and he might not have since he didn't win player of the game, but it's all good. We're headed into the playoffs with a first-round bye, and I don't know how it slipped my mind, but we are undefeated at home. Even if Singletary did fall a little bit short of the Heisman though, we did have some defensive award winners, so we've knocked off 2 more challenges here in year number 9, and I think if we make a run to the championship, Singletary will hit 5,000 passing yards. As for our rushing attack, he actually led us there as well, and even though we threw the ball a lot more this season, Shane Davis took a step back. As for our defense, I mentioned that there were some award winners like left end Orlando Burrow, and right outside linebacker Justin Johnson also had another 2. From here, I'm using the 14-team playoff tool for the first time, and I honestly can't believe they keep expanding it. If they weren't going to go with 8, I felt like 12 was the most they'd ever expand it to, but everything in college football is changing, and it looks like we're going to face this good running back in Utah. As for some of the other playoff results, our side of the bracket isn't looking too hard, and it's time for our first playoff game in school history. I thought we'd make it last year and then lose in like the first round, but instead we've absolutely 0 postseason experience in this tournament. And on the Utes' first drive, they're in 5 wide on this 3rd down where we are going to miss 1 tackle, but we're still going to bring them down short. That means we're getting the ball back, holding them here, and we've had the best offense in the country all season, so that might be the only stop we need. After losing out on the Heisman, Jeff Singletary has a lot to prove, and if they're going to give him that much time, he's going to decide to run it. So that sets us up for our money play to the fastest running back in the world. If I could just convince one of the 2 of them to come back next year, I feel like it would be possible to go back to back, but we still haven't won our first championship, and even though we've dominated this entire first half, 28-3 is a scary lead to have, so I'd like to get onto the board one more time before the end of this quarter, and we gotta get this interception. Come on, you're kidding me. Roberts has gotten free and Jones missed him. I mean, you know we're gonna respond back anyway, so it shouldn't matter too much as we go to the 20, and we're putting on a clinic versus this Utes defense because they can't stop us. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we might drop 70 points in a playoff matchup, and what was that pass? That is our future quarterback that threw it since the backups have been in for a while, and we'd win 66-10. So I'd say we're ready for our semifinal opponent. We've already beaten LSU once this year, but that wasn't Sam, and they were unranked at the time, but they must be pretty good because they just beat Army, and that's with the Black Knights quarterback playing almost perfectly. Of the 4 teams left, 3 of them are SEC schools, so even though it looked like it was a down year for the conference, I don't think it was, and we better be prepared. I know they're a 12 seed, but they could still knock us out. So just like we did against Utah, we have to make sure that we get off to a hot start, and that route bounce just worked out for them. Are you serious? I knew what they wanted, and they're taking taking their sweet time moving it down the field though. On this 3rd and 6, we could have stopped them, but we didn't, and the refs are trying to bail us out. This was obviously a catch, so I don't know why they're reviewing it, and it's way too early for somebody in Vegas to be making a call like that on this game as they get into the end zone. Steven Crawford just ran through our entire defense, and it took no time to reach the end of the first quarter. I'm not sure if there's going to be very many possessions in this game, but that's probably how to beat us. And the computer has come into this with a very smart game plan, but it's not going to matter. We are going to take down the Tigers, and Shane Davis keeps getting open, so he is going to set a school record as this is the most receiving touchdowns, and he breaks his previous. With about a minute left in the first half, you're going to notice it's still tied up, but we have a chance to take the lead, and I've got to get this to Graham Brewer on a halfback screen if he can get open, because he has the speed to make a play out of this. And look at that. Our star running back comes up clutch when we need him to, but our defense has been letting LSU get it down the field, and we can't let them get a field goal. I want to stay up by 7 so bad, and there's only a little bit left in this half, but they're going to find Lewis. That's how they end it, and it's going to be all tied up at 21. I knew they'd come to play, but I didn't think that we were going to be in this tight of a battle in the 3rd quarter, because normally our defense makes it so our offense just runs away with it, and if they could just get this stop on 3rd and 16, they'd finally do something well for us, but they find the open space. I really don't know what we could do differently. I'm trying to stick with all the routes that I can, but they draw up good 3rd down plays, and this has been a much more challenging matchup than I was ever expecting. We don't get the interception on Kelly, but he did have a foot step out of bounds, so that catch doesn't count. It is 4th and 10. We could get them off the field, and we do. This is where we start to run away with things, because now their defense has to step up, and they did. But either way, we're going to have a 2-possession lead on them, and on 3rd and 6, I'm just going to guard this drag underneath so they can take that. However, they're saying he didn't get a foot in bounds, and they're not challenging it either. For a team that's played us so smart, now they're punting it back to us on 4th and 6, so they're pretty much conceding, because there's no way we don't score even more points on them, and this might be the return of the century, just one guy to beat. But not pulling it off actually helps us, because we've run off more clock. LSU is not going to be able to come back from this, because we are up by 17 with 2 minutes left. So we are headed to the championship, and we can thank Jeff Singletary for that. Now, we've already beaten Oklahoma, but I don't want to face them again, so I'm rooting for Nebraska to come out on top, and they didn't, as they lost it by 3. We're going to have to take down the Sooners again, and this time our first championship's on the line, so the pressure is on, but I know we can handle it. Ideally, they won't get a touchdown on their first drive, but they're very close, and Stephen Murphy puts them up 7-0, so I feel kind of pressured to go for it on 4th and 2 already, but that works out for us as well. I know we have the roster to win this championship if we're doing the right thing and getting first downs, but like always, my main concern has been about next season, and to complete all the challenges, we're going to have to win another championship. That's a laser though, so we've tied it back up at 7, and it's time for our defense to step up. I'm trusting them to do so on this 3rd and 7. I'm sticking with that slant, but they've decided to bomb us deep instead, and their quarterback has done whatever he's wanted to against us, as that's another first. However, the refs aren't giving it to them, and they're playing so passively for no reason. I don't know why they do that, but none of our wide receivers are beating the press, which is not good. I think I'm just going to go for the arm punt, send up a 50-50 ball, and that is deflected to us, but they get it. We should have caught that football, but we didn't. And I'm rocking with man-to-man on this 3rd and 4, where they are going to get open versus our defense. With the stakes being as high as they are, we cannot afford to be making mistakes in this game. Come on, make the hit. And I'm glad that they didn't send their kicker out there, because I'm pretty sure he could have drilled it. With a minute left in the half, I think we're going to reach the end zone. We just have to get a few more yards, and I'm confident in Brewer to just take it up the middle, so that's what we needed to end this first half. Now we're driving down the field again, and Singletary's going to help us pick up this first, so I'm starting to feel like we're going to be okay, but we still have to finish this drive off, and they got in pressure. This is not the time for us to not come up clutch, and I see we had someone open, but maybe there's a reason he didn't win the Heisman Trophy, and that is going to be intercepted by Meyer. I'm literally just going to send everybody up the middle to get the safety, but that could have been very bad, and I hope the feedback that NFL scouts are giving Jeff Singletary is he's not ready for the NFL. With that drop, we're going to have to punt it back to Oklahoma, only up by 6 going into the 4th quarter, and they're going to catch that nicely. So it looks like we're about to go down by 1, but then we responded back almost instantly, and we get the 2-pointer. I think we'll be okay, because I know that we can trust our defense, and on this 3rd down, we don't get them off the field. But even if we can't, we should have the final drive in this game, and they just lost 3 yards. So it is 4th and 4. They go with the halfback draw, and they got a little bit stuck, but they're still going to pick it up. Winning this first championship has not been as simple as I thought it would, but we got very blessed during the simulation part of things this season, and now I just need to play good defense for a couple more downs, which we do. That is such a massive sack, because Oklahoma has no choice but to go for it on 4th and 20. They send up a 50-50 ball, and we get the interception. That is what I love to see. With just 1 first down, that would do it versus the Sooners, and we're getting it, because all we need is 1 more yard, and Brewer is able to pick that up plus more. It feels good good to finally have done it, and it took us until year 9, but that's fine. The issue is we still have to get one more next season, and there's a good chance that Jeff Singletary's gone to the NFL, but at least he helped us complete the 5th challenge in this video, and he's going to be missed, but so would Graham Brewer if he also is gone. I feel like maybe telling him he'll win the Heisman gives us a slight chance, but it still says low. I'll guarantee another national title, and he wants to come back. As for Singletary, there's nothing I could do, but right end Isaac Brown is also going to be a much higher draft pick, which will help him come back too. So even if we're losing a lot of seniors that started for us and were very good, I think we still have a lot of talent around us, and we had the 7th best class. The training results also look really good for everybody besides our quarterback position, but Tyler Smith's up to an 84. So we're just going to have to trust him to help us get back-to-back championships, and it stinks that we had that level 30 offensive coordinator for only 1 year, but this next one's a level 21, which isn't too bad. Well, even if Canada never became a pipeline state, we officially recruited out of only these 3 territories, and I don't have to worry about it this year because it's season 10 of the rebuild. It is championship or bust, and that's all that matters. But just like last year, we have a player that's in the running for the Heisman, and we cannot run an air raid offense with our new quarterback, so we're going back to the spread with a run-heavy philosophy. I have no idea how this season's gonna go, but hopefully we can beat my favorite team to start things out, and we destroyed them. So if there's any takeaways from this, it's gonna be that we're gonna run it pretty well, and I'm shocked that we're a higher overall team this year compared to last. We really didn't lose that many players besides our quarterback that almost won a Heisman Trophy. So it makes sense, but we have to keep taking care of business, and how did we only win by 10? That is not what you want to see versus an FCS school, but we're still playing unranked opponents, and there it is. It was only a matter of time before we picked up a loss, and now we take on Washington State. So we're gonna have to stop paying attention to SEC conference play for a bit, and instead hop into this road matchup, because even though they're a much lower overall team, we cannot lose back-to-back games at this point in the year. That could cause our team to continue to spiral during sim, and this hasn't gone well so far, but I'm still trying to get used to this new offense, and on 4th and 4, thankfully we got the perfect blocks for Smith, who is going to fight his way down to the 10. We've lost our best receivers in this rebuild, but I still think we can make some catches, and most of the defense that won us a championship is still out there on the field, so we could have stopped them on 3rd down, but our zones just don't do their job. Luckily, with a couple minutes left in the first half, it's still 7-7, and Brewer has a chance to get a tutty, but instead he did whatever that was, and these blocks are not going to hold up for our quarterback. After using these guys, it's clear that this is not like last year's roster, but by the 4th quarter, things are looking a lot better, because what I've figured out is we can just run the football down teams' throats, and our defense has still only given up 7 points to Washington State, and this needs to be intercepted. Even if it wasn't, we still stopped them on 4th down, and I'm pretty happy with how that one turned out, but I'm also aware that we still dropped that dumb game to Arkansas, and I'm not sure how much all of that matters because we play in the SEC, and LSU made the playoffs last year with 4 losses, so we might as well continue to sim throughout this regular season, and we destroyed them. What's surprising to me though is our running back fell out of the Heisman race, and Texas seems to be dominating, so I don't know if we're going to make the SEC championship. And honestly, I think I'm just going to advance all the way up until our games against Oklahoma and Texas, because those are the 2 tough ones on our schedule. Texas A&M could give us some issues on the road, but it's not worth hopping into. And as of recently, we have owned the Washington Huskies as we continue to do so. I was so confident that we'd come out on top, and now we're up to number 4 in the country. But what's also important to note is we have the tiebreaker over Texas if we beat them, and Oklahoma's gotten even better. Their star quarterback's still with them, so it's no surprise to me that they have the number 2 offense in the country, and the only one that's better than theirs is ours. So this is going to be a battle, and of course it snows in Oklahoma, even when sometimes it doesn't in Alaska. If there's any team that I want to avoid in the playoffs, it's got to be them, as he gets a tutty, and Anthony Brown has always been an issue whenever we face him. As we approach the end of the first half, I don't think it's a surprise we're losing, but we should have picked up that 4th and inches, and because we didn't, I'm scared of what could happen on 3rd and 10. They go over to Sims and we make the tackle. I even burned a timeout just in case a miracle happens on our offensive drive as Brewer goes down, and we need to have a much better second half. The issue though is offensively, we are not as good as we were last season, and we're not converting on 3rd and 17, so the Sooners have stopped us again, and with the way that they're playing, we're about to drop another game this season. Luckily for us, this would be a good loss, but if we also drop one to Texas, we might find our spot in the playoffs eliminated, and come on Brewer, we could use a massive run right now. This is exactly what we needed, and he is gone to the crib. Now it's on our defense to get us the ball back, and with the option, they're going to be able to pick up a few, but I'm still confident that we can step up here, and I'm run committing straight up the middle, but they've hit us with a pass instead. We were not prepared for it, and Palmer is going to get free. That's going to make it 28-14. It is not fun to have hope for a second and then to see it all pulled away from you like this, but if we don't pick up this 4th and 10, it's all over, and that's going to be intercepted. They get the turnover. So we've now lost 2 games this season, and Anthony Brown finally beat us, but we haven't fallen far, so we should be fine, and Texas is coming off of another loss. I never enjoy playing on the road, but if we're going to win another championship, we have to be capable of winning ones like this, and as long as we get off to a good start, our offense helps us control the pace pretty well. It has been a long drive, but we're about to punch it in. And Texas took a long time to respond back themselves, so there's not going to be much room for error. All I know is I've done so much in this rebuild to put this team into this position now. And if we can't win 2 championships, that's going to be on me because this roster is good enough. I don't think a loss to the Longhorns would drop us out of the top 14, but I also can't guarantee it. So us finishing this off is very important. And I've had to lock in, but with 3 minutes left in the third quarter, we're doing really well. Of course, once we get this far down the field, you know exactly what we're going to go with. And if our defense could just hold this strong in the playoffs, we're going to be fine, but we have to get some pressure in. I mean, they're not going to come back, but they did expose some of our weaknesses. And because we have a good kicker, I know we can settle for 3. So that's why I took the passive approach there to give us a 3-possession lead. Unfortunately, we're not going back to the SEC championship, but we are going back to the college football playoffs. And I feel like things are looking pretty up for us. There's still a slight chance that we could get a top 2 seed in it. And stat-wise, Tyler Smith did a pretty solid job. We obviously leaned a lot more on our running backs than him, and that's why no receivers really stood out, including Chris Fulton. But that's fine because I want to fly under the radar, and with how things just shaped out, I am loving this. We somehow just got a first-round bye, but there is one issue, and that's the fact that Oklahoma's on our side of the bracket. We're playing the winner of this game, so of course we're facing another SEC school, and Oklahoma's definitely coming for us considering they just took down 7-seeded Alabama. I don't love it, but that was out of our control, and now it's time to see who the better team really is. This is our chance to really step things up, and I feel like we have what it takes to make a title run, but in order to do so, we have to shut down Anthony Brown early, and that's what we've done, forcing a 3-and-out. After that, our goal is to just bleed through the clock using our rushing attack, and I want to make sure we're controlling the pace of this game. We have to pick up this 3rd and 5 though, and that is a good throw. So far, things are going exactly how I was hoping they would, but we still need to keep picking up first downs, and we've consistently done that, which has been super impressive. At the same time, almost the entire first quarter is already gone, and the Sooners better make sure they have a good second drive. Their offense has been on the field for 5 plays in this game, and if we could stop them here, that's only 6, so they haven't had a chance to make a difference, but if we can't convert on this 3rd and long, they're going to get it right back, and thankfully we're going to do so. I don't think Oklahoma has what it takes to get us off of the field, and my goal is for this to be the final possession in the first half. No matter what happens here, we're going to be up by 2 possessions, and I'm not going to get free on this run. So things aren't looking great with a 3rd and 14, but we're going to take our corner route, and that is held onto. Chris Fulton's going to put us up 14-0, and of course it's going to be challenged, but from what I saw in real time, he definitely got a foot down, and we started the 3rd quarter with another touchdown, so the Sooners are starting to panic. There's not much that they can do versus us. We're going to stop them again, and I think they have to go for it, but instead they're opting to just kick the field goal, and I'm not sure they realize how bad of a decision that was because we have the ball back again, where we've continued to shred through more clock, and we keep picking up first downs like that. We came in this game prepared more than I thought we'd be, but because they beat us earlier in the year, and we've been playing them a lot recently, we knew exactly what we had to do, and look at this run from Smith. He's not going to reach the end zone, but he's fighting, and I love what Tyler Smith can do for this offense, even if I wasn't sure about it. His rushing ability has helped us manage this game perfectly, and this time the halfback toss is going to work, so from here it's definitely over, and we are moving on to the semifinals. Only 2 games stand between us and a championship, and I really don't want to face another SEC school, but they seem to always have success in the playoffs, and a missed field goal in overtime is the reason the Gators lost. Another thing I find odd is Bowling Green's still in this, and in my last rebuild we met them in the championship, but we should just focus on the team that's in front of us, because as much as I give crap to Iowa, they've made it here for a reason. My guess would be because of their defense, and they could have stopped us on this 3rd and 4, but Brewer's just too quick, so he kept the drive alive for us, and on 3rd and 7, we're going to pick up the slant to Fulton. The Hawkeyes have tried their hardest, but they haven't found an answer for our offense, but I'm hoping that we have one for theirs, and on this 3rd and 8, it looks like we've left Washington open, who's going to miss 2 tackles, 3 tackles, and there's just a couple of guys left that could catch him, and we do. That is not what I was expecting to happen there. On 1st and goal, they throw it away, but eventually they're probably going to get our defense to crack because we're just running man-to-man, so I'll give them a different look with some zones out there on the field, and this is going to be perfect. I'd say that was a solid first quarter, but if we're going to pull away, we have a lot of work to do, and I've been waiting for this Wildcat formation to break off a big run, and because it never did, on 3rd and 6, we have to throw the ball, but that's fine. Eventually, we'd get it down to their 5-yard line where we take it in, and then they fumbled away the kickoff to us, so we have it again, and this is the perfect way to end the first half. Our defense was one of the main reasons that we took down Oklahoma, and it seems like they're going to make this one pretty easy versus Iowa as well. The only thing we can't do is give up points before the half, and we're not going to do that, but I am going to take a timeout because I believe that we could try to score more, put this thing out of reach, and I'm just going to throw up a 50-50 ball hoping for the best. Their D is pretty solid, but I don't know if they're also able to stop Smith's rushing abilities, and they are. So it was worth a shot, but I'm not going to force anything. We're probably going to get nothing, and that's true. They'd also score a touchdown to start the second half, but they missed the extra point, which helps us. And we have dominated this game when it comes to total yards of offense, so we'll continue to do it. Here on 3rd and 4, I trust Brewer to help us pick this up, and he fights for it. So I feel like it's safe to say we're headed back to the championship, but we need to go back up by 3 possessions first, and that's not happening. To be honest, what I'm about to do isn't that risky. We could try the fake field goal, and it worked, so it pays off. We're up 3 possessions like I wanted, and there's really not much Iowa can do at this point. They're just going to throw it to their check down on 3rd and 21, and it kind of helped, but that's just because we've had an issue when it comes to tackling, and on this play, we're also going to have an issue as they take it to the crib. Since they wouldn't get the onside kick, though, we should be fine, and all it takes is one handoff to Graham Brewer that gets free, but that didn't happen on that play, so if we don't pick this up, we might be in some trouble, and I can't escape it. They're getting the ball back with 3 timeouts, so they're in a position where they could pull off the comeback since they can stop the clock if they score again, but they fumble it away to us, and I can't believe we didn't bounce on it. If I choked a 28-9 lead over Iowa, I could not live with myself, but surely that won't happen. It's 4th and inches, and we got the pressure in. They scared me for a second, but we are headed back to the Natty, and there's no way Bowling Green does it again. That would be back-to-back rebuilds where they make an undefeated run to the championship, but I'm starting to believe that they might actually have what it takes because they are only down by 6 and they just fumbled it, but somehow they also recovered, so they could still beat Penn State, and they gotta hike it. With no timeouts left, there is 0 room for error, and you can't throw it inbounds, but because they did, this game's over, and we're playing Penn State in the championship. I would have much preferred the 79 overall Falcons, but instead we're facing a 97 overall, and we'll see if our game plan works against Penn State. This is my last chance to win a championship, and I can't believe it's come down to the wire, but at one point in this rebuild, I thought I might not even complete half of the challenges, so I'm very thankful that we've made it this far, and I just have to make sure we don't screw up this game. Here on a 2nd and 5, we have an open slant, and that's going to be caught. So Chris Fulton's the first player to score a touchdown in the championship, and Penn State's already in a 3rd and 8 situation where that zone is going to cover. We have gotten them off the field with a 3 and out, and I don't like being in goal line on our own midfield, but I had to try the halfback toss, and they were all over it. We're punting it right back to them, but this is always a great opportunity to pin them inside the 5-yard line, and with this bounce, I'm trying to get back to it quick enough. I do, and that's perfect. You know what we do in these situations, sending the house, and the Nittany Lions went in hurry-up mode after seeing our last play call, which is going to get them a few yards. We have a big 3rd and 7 coming up, and I am going to trust our defense. It's a halfback screen. We're all over it, and I'm going to get a pick 6 with Johnson. That was instant, and he won 2 defensive awards a year ago, so I am glad he is stuck around with this program, and we have got to guard the flat better, but it's okay. They didn't pick up enough for the first, and even if their defense has also been shutting us down, I'm not sure if they're going to have a stop for this, and Fulton drops it. I thought that might hurt us a lot, but they've struggled to move the ball, and they're going to have to kick a field goal. That'll also set us up nicely to have the final drive of the first half, and from there, we have been able to maintain our lead, but Penn State won't go away entirely. As you can see, it's 2nd and 17. They're close to the end zone, and only being up by 11 is never enough, but they've hit us with another halfback screen, and we almost had 2 pick 6s. Johnson read it like a book, but he couldn't catch that one, and we are running the ball on 3rd and 5. I feel like this is our best chance to pick it up, but they stopped us well short. This game started so well for us, but now they're coming back pretty easily, and I think this rebuild's going to end up coming down to the wire. On 3rd and goal, they're out there in 5 wide. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to guard every slant, and tight end Matt Brooks gets them into the end zone. I know we weren't up by that much, but we've choked, and going into the 4th quarter, we've put together a decent drive, but their defense has been the real deal, and I'm not sure we're going to pick up this 3rd and 8 either unless we make this throw on the run. Chris Fulton had a bad drop early on, but I had to trust him, and I'll probably have to do the same thing on 3rd and 7, but he catches it again. With 3 minutes left, I don't think we can run out the rest of the clock, but we could go for the end zone, and Penn State's going to have an opportunity to respond back to whatever points we put up, so I'm just hoping they don't go for the 2-point conversion if they can score a touchdown as well, but I don't like that we won't have control over that. Overtime also doesn't sound great, but we've put ourselves in this position, and they throw it away, so it is 4th and 5, and this is legitimately it. Whether or not we're able to lock up is such a big deal, and we do. Since we're in field goal range, this one is already over, but Brewer wants even more, going for a bigger run, and if we messed it up from here, we'd have to really screw things up. With that touchdown, it is official, and we have knocked off every challenge in this video. I like switching things up and having different ones, so make sure to leave more ideas down below. I also enjoyed using Alaska, but I think it's about time we revisit the Hawaii challenge from last year, and it's crazy to think that we produced 3 first-round picks out of the few states we recruited in. That wraps up this one though, so if we hit 10,000 likes on this video, I'll try to win a championship recruiting only in Hawaii, and I'll see you all in the next one.